Hi everyone. Today we are going to talk about the small population paradigm. Now, when populations get small, the final processes that cause a population to become extinct are stochastic oftentimes. So demographic stochasticity, inbreeding depression, genetic drift, these kind of processes end up causing the final death knell for a population. When we use the term the small population paradigm in conservation biology, we're referring to the tendency in conservation biology to study those stochastic processes that affect small populations disproportionately to large populations and ultimately cause extinction. Okay, let's get started. So we're talking about the small population paradigm. And as I mentioned, the small population paradigm refers to the tendency in conservation biology to study stochastic factors that can result in the extinction or degradation of small populations. Now, one of these processes, these stochastic processes that disproportionately affect small populations, is demographic stochasticity. And we've already explored this concept, which is really, really central to the small population paradigm. Why is it that small populations are more vulnerable to demographic stochasticity than large populations? Well, the simple fact is that it's much more likely for all 10 individuals in a population that is a very small population that only has 10 individuals. It's much more likely for all of those individuals to be unlucky in the same year than for, say, all 1,000 individuals in a larger population. It's very unlikely that all 1,000 individuals will all be very unlucky in a given year just by random chance. So just as it's very unlikely for all 1,000 coin flips to come out heads, it's almost a vanishingly small, almost impossible scenario. The same thing with large populations. You just don't see every single individual becoming unlucky. So that's a really important concept because that illustrates that small populations are much more vulnerable to stochastic processes, especially individual level stochastic processes like demographic stochasticity, whereas for a large population, the probability of everyone being unlucky, dying, or not giving birth to any new individuals, those probabilities are vanishingly small. So the moral of the story is here that weird and dramatic things like extinction can happen in small populations for no other reason than that the population is small. So random extinction would never happen in large populations just due to demographic stochasticity, that is random mating, births, and mortality processes. So if we assume a stable, favorable environment with no catastrophic events, then we're not going to see demographic stochasticity cause extinction in that population. Now, the same thing goes for another process that you may have heard of. If you've taken a genetics class, you've probably heard of genetic drift. Now, genetic drift is another phenomenon, just like random extinction due to demographic stochasticity, that is specific to small populations. Or at least it's more dramatic in small populations. So what is genetic drift? Well, in large populations, random forces just aren't strong enough to get rid of an allele or gene variant that is relatively common in the population. So this could happen by natural selection, where this gene variant confers some really great advantage on those individuals that have that gene variant, and they're going to survive much more than the individuals that do not have that variant. So in a large population, natural selection can cause dramatic changes in the gene pool or the types of gene variants that are in a population. But that wouldn't happen in a large population by random chance. That is, you wouldn't see dramatic shifts in the gene pool just due to random chance. But in small populations, random chance can be, and often is, the primary driver of genetic change over time. For small populations, that change is often due not to natural selection, but to random chance. And here's an illustration of that process. Now, we can consider this bottle and with balls in it of various colors. Consider that a population, and we have two different types of gene variants. We have a red gene variant and a blue gene variant in this very simplified population. Now, you can see these dark circles within these balls. Those represent the number of offspring produced by each individual to the next year. So each bottle represents 1 year. So this is the initial year, this is year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and we can see how things change over time. Now, this red ball reproduced and produced another red ball. This one failed to reproduce and doesn't contribute offspring to the next generation, let's say. This blue ball has got really lucky due to demographic stochasticity and reproduced 3 times. So 3 of these blue balls over here were a result of this reproduction event. We can see this is basically demographic stochasticity here. So, we can't predict how many births each individual is going to have. It's just kind of a random chance thing. This one happens to get really lucky. So just luckiness and unluckiness at this individual level. This individual got really lucky and managed to reproduce 5 times into the next generation. So 5 of these blue balls are a result of this reproduction event. So we have random chance operating here, and by random chance, more of the blue variants were able to reproduce, and therefore there's this second year is enriched in the blue genetic variant. And just by random chance, again, in the next year, the blue variants reproduced more. Now, this is not due to natural selection. This is just due to random chance. And so now by the third year here, we have only 3 red variants left. Now, the next year, one of these red variants gets a little bit lucky and is able to reproduce 3 times. So the next year we have a few more red variants, but in this last year, none of the red variants reproduced just by random chance, and therefore in that final year what we have is a complete takeover of the population by these blue variants. So we have what's called genetic fixation of the blue variant. Now, let's imagine a scenario where the red variant confers some important advantage occasionally in the population. Let's say it confers drought resistance. Now, during this 5-year period that we see here, there was no drought. So by random chance, we had these genetic drift happening, and unfortunately, by the end of this cycle, we have no red variants left. Now, if a drought comes in year 6, what's going to happen to this population? Well, there's no drought-resistant individuals left because that red variant was the one that conferred drought resistance. And this can happen in small populations that just by random chance, we lose an important gene variant that will be important in various times in various points in time due to, say, catastrophes or events that are just sporadic. They don't happen all the time. So it is really important to maintain genetic diversity in populations, oftentimes, in order for the population to be truly sustainable for many generations. And so just by random chance, demographic stochasticity, what we have here is complete fixation. Now, there's no natural selection involved in this scenario, just stochastic events, just demographic stochasticity. By random chance, this population is now more susceptible to drought than it was before. Now, you should all be able to answer this question at this point. Is a small population or a large population more susceptible to genetic drift, that is loss of variation due to random chance? Absolutely. A small population is far more susceptible to genetic drift. All right, we'll pick up in the next video.